It begins with a silence, not a peaceful one. A loud, screaming silence that fills the space between your thumb and the screen. You are a ghost long before you disappear. A specter in your own life, haunting the edges of conversations you no longer feel a part of. Every text message you received felt like a stone being placed on your chest, heavy, demanding, suffocating. They didn't see you, they saw a mirror. A place to reflect their own needs, their own chaos, their own endless monologues. And you let them. Because you thought that was your role, the listener, the fixer, the steady rock in their perpetual storm. But rocks don't just stand, they break. They grind down into sand, grain by painful grain. This isn't a story of cruelty. Don't ever let them tell you that. This is a story of survival. It's psychology. Your brain, your very nervous system, has a circuit breaker. You were experiencing a prolonged threat, the fight or flight response. You couldn't fight, they didn't listen. So you chose flight, the most absolute flight there is. You didn't just walk away, you vanished. You turned into a frequency they could no longer tune into. Let's call her Ilara, a classic case. Her life was a tapestry woven with other people's threads. Her own color had long since faded. Her friend was an emotional vampire, but not the dramatic, movie kind, the quiet kind, the kind that bleeds you dry. Every conversation was a one-way street, leading directly to the center of their universe. She was just roadside scenery. Late-night calls about manufactured crises, texts that demanded immediate validation. Her energy was a resource to be mined. The breaking point wasn't a shout, it was a whisper. A 3 a.m. text about something trivial, something that could have waited until morning. But it couldn't wait, because their needs could never wait. And in that moment, she saw the endlessness of it, a future of 3 a.m. texts. So she pressed the button. Block. Delete. Anesthesia. The line went dead. For the first time in years, there was silence. The first stage is relief, a profound, guilty, beautiful relief, like a drowning person finally breaking the surface. You can breathe. The air doesn't taste like someone else's recycled drama. It tastes like your own. But that peace is fragile. It is quickly followed by the haunting. Guilt is a phantom. It sits in the passenger seat of your car. It stands behind you when you look in the mirror. You imagine their confusion, their anger. You write their side of the story in your head, and you always cast yourself as the villain. You're a coward. You're cruel. You could have just talked to me. The accusations echo in the This is the critical juncture. The moment you have to confront the truth. Could you have talked to them? Really? Think back. Think of all the times you tried. The gentle hints, the polite deflections, the conversations where your words were just placeholders for their next turn to speak. You did talk. You screamed. And they were deaf to it, because hearing you would have required them to stop listening to themselves. This is the turning point, the revelation. Ghosting wasn't the first move in a war, it was the last move in a game you were forced to play. You weren't abandoning a person, you were abandoning a dynamic, a toxic, unsustainable loop of taking and giving. And the silence starts to change. It's no longer an absence of them, it's the presence of you. You start to hear your own thoughts again. Not the edited, watered-down versions you used to present for their approval. Your own unfiltered thoughts. They're quiet, they're strange, they're yours. You rediscover the things that charged you, the hobbies they called weird, the music they dismissed, the solitude they couldn't understand. You were a puppet, and you thought the strings were a connection. Now you see they were a cage. You didn't run from the puppeteer, you just cut your own string. Here is the hard truth. The people who get angry about your boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. They don't miss you. They miss your utility. They miss the space you occupied in their story, the role you played. To go ghost is a final, desperate act of self-definition. It is saying, my story is not a subplot in yours, it is my own. It is a messy, imperfect, and painful process. It may leave a scar. But it's the scar from a surgery that saved your life, not the wound that was killing you. So if you are the one who disappeared, forgive yourself. You did what you had to do to survive. You chose the silence because you had forgotten the sound of your own voice. And the silence you created, that isn't emptiness. That is the sound of healing, the sound of you finally coming home to yourself.